No, 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 no! I'm not going to let McLaren cope and ruin Ricciardo's last race and say if they lose the championship, by 1 point, oh, it's because of Ricciardo. No. If they lose this World Drivers' Championship this year with clearly the best car for weeks now, they have only themselves to blame. I'm here to go over all of the points that Lando Norris and McLaren have lost him since their first win in Miami and why McLaren only has themselves to blame if they inevitably fall short in the World Drivers' Championship. Nobody in history has overcome the gap that Lando had to Max, and Lando would have been well on his way at this point if it weren't for his own performance and mistakes and McLaren making horrible calls. But first, we're going to get started talking about last weekend's Singapore Grand Prix and the controversy with Daniel Ricciardo's fastest lap on the last lap of the race, taking it away from Lando Norris. Let's get started with some little bit of media here. Um, Obviously, McKAREN had to right after the race, so McLaren team principal Andrea Stella says Red Bull's relationship with junior team RB needs to be addressed after Daniel Ricciardo denied Lando Norris, yada, yada, yada. Their whole thing, their big thing that they said was down here because this is a constructors' championship, a drivers' championship. This is not a coalition championship. Why is it so far out of the realm of possibility that Daniel Ricciardo, who was already in like 15th place at that point, had absolutely no chance to score points or do anything? They act like he threw his race away to go do this. No, dude, he saw an opportunity. He had nothing else to lose, and he went for it on possibly his last lap in F1. Why does that lead to them? And all this controversy, like, oh, they're colluding against McLaren to take away the fastest lap. Oh, that is just so pathetic, man. That is so pathetic, especially over one measly little point because you guys can't execute your strategies or you can't do this or that with the fastest car now. Let's go to this because the race.com, I see this thing all the time. They clearly have British bias. They must be headquartered over there. They had a whole piece about the ethical questions. The ethical question raised by like why are there even he just got the fastest lap, dog. It's only because he's on if he was on some other team there would be no ethical questions. They'd be like, "Oh, nice, he just got fastest lap. That's cool." No. Yeah, Ricardo came out after the race and joked that he might get himself a nice Christmas present if, Red Bull end up winning the drivers championship by by 1 point. Just a joke. Andrea Stella glazed Daniel Ricciardo and then said that a little surprised the highest priority of Racing Bulls in Singapore was to score the fastest lap of the race. You mean the guy that was like in 15th on the last lap, absolutely no chance to do anything. And the funniest part about this is Zach Brown said we were surprised and we weren't expecting them to do that. Even though Lando had plenty of pace the whole time, had plenty of a gap the entire race, was not under any kind of issues other than the three mistakes that he made himself and almost ruining his own race. There was no issues with like a 10-second gap. He could have chilled at that and just maintained that and just kind of kept it 10, 11. No, they told him on the radio to continue to push because they probably wanted to ensure they could get a pit stop gap so that they could get the fastest lap. Yeah, too bad you couldn't get there. He fucked up a couple too many times, and then Daniel Ricciardo got it on possibly his last lap in F1 because he felt like it, man. Because he felt like it, and yeah. Is it ridiculous to think that maybe he had Max in the back of his mind and was like, "Oh, maybe this will help him out"? Maybe, dude. But in the midst of a race like that, and it's like your last lap, and all the emotions that must have been going through his head at that point, just for them to like cause all of this over it is just crazy. Um, yeah, Zach Brown says that's nice. AB team sporting that thing that I don't think was allowed. You know what I mean? Like, just whining, dude. And they've been whining all year. Um, I don't know the facts. I just know VCAR went for the fastest lap and achieved it. But for me to here to talk about sportsmanship and so on, I think it would be out of place. Yeah, dude, it would be out of place because he just got the fucking fastest lap. Again, not a coalition championship. This definitely needs to be addressed. What needs to be addressed? What? I don't even understand that. This has pretty much been the narrative all year with Zach Brown. Zach Brown, Christian Horner says and does stuff I don't think that I think is wrong, and he literally says this in the article like. It just seems I have more issues with Christian more than others because he says and does stuff that I think is wrong. Like, dude's just a crybaby about everything. I don't understand it. After the Austrian Grand Prix and the whole accident between Lando and Max, he comes out and says that there's a lack of respect and we need to have respect for regulations. And we've seen there be a lack of respect, whether it's financial regulations or, sporting on track issues with fathers or things of that nature. They've been yapping all year, man. They've just been whining all year about shit. I don't understand it, but they've just been every chance they get, man. Every chance they get in the media, just whining. Even with the horn dog files, man. Came out about the horn dog files. Oh, there should be an FIA investigation. Lack of transparency. Da da da. Why do you care, bro? Why don't you just leave it to them, man? That's none of your. I mean, I get it's your business, kind of adjacent, but it's really none of your business, dude. Why don't you let them handle it and just worry about your own team, okay? Worry about your own losses, and that's exactly what we're gonna go over. But first, you talking all this crap about him, but Horner said McLaren have expressed interest in Red Bull power units from 2026 on. So some mixed emotions from Zach Brown. Maybe he's got a little crush on Horner. I don't know. Maybe he saw the horn dog file, saw that dingaling, and he's got a little thing for him now, dude. Who knows? Who knows? He's definitely acting like he's got a crush on him, like a little fucking child. Anyway, let's go over these stats, the cold hard facts of why Lando Norris still has the gap that he does to Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship. And let me just break it down to you guys. It's their own goddamn fault, okay? I mean, Red Bull's practically been handing it to him this year. I'm gonna put my head here over the names just so I don't cover too much, because you can see the names here. But here's the entire season broken down, man. We got Lando Norris on the left, Max Verstappen on the right. Here's your gap here, 52 points right now. The most it was 84 points back in Qatar, and he's done a good job since then. As you can see, the purple here is going to be the fastest laps, and he's got 3 out of the last 4. Pretty good. Would have had 4 in a row, but Ricciardo, see you, brother. On his way out, took one for the team, and and got the fastest lap. So didn't get all of them, but there's all these two. So to be fair, Max only has 2, but when you have this consistent of a points, I guess it is it's about the same. It's about the same, but we're missing points here in Monaco. Like, what are we doing in Monaco? Like Qatar, we already got the good car here. What are we doing, man? Austria, we had the crash, but these are sprint points. So let's break it down. Since Miami, he has 4 out of the last 12 fastest laps. Let's go. Let's start with Monaco specifically. Monaco, Lando qualifies 4th in Monaco behind Oscar and both Ferraris. And obviously, when you qualify that poorly at Monaco, you're not going to get those points back during the race. It's going to be nearly impossible to overtake, and he didn't. So obviously, a massive miss out on points there. They already had a solid car at that point. Ferrari was a little bit better that weekend, but still missed points regardless. In Canada, he qualified 3rd and placed 2nd to Max. Had a chance to win there too, and just made a few too many mistakes. Spanish Grand Prix, Lando outqualified Max, but lost to him in the race after completely ruining it into turn 1. Did get the fastest lap, but again, you're starting in first and only getting 19 points, and Max is over here getting 2nd place and taking 25. So it's like, again, massive miss out on points, especially when you're qualifying in first. Whose fault is that? Are we gonna blame Horner for that too? Like, I don't understand. Uh, Austria, obviously the crash between Max and Lando. So Max ended up finishing in 5th, Lando DNF'd, and it was a sprint weekend as well. So Lando ended up with 6 points, no fastest lap. Max ended up with 18 points, and that's just part of the game, I guess you can say, for both of them. Obviously, it was a much better outcome for Max, which however you feel about the crash, we can say that maybe the final accident was more Max's fault, but Lando certainly had plenty of opportunities to cause an accident before that. And if it wasn't for Max getting out of the way, they would have had one way sooner than that last one. It seemed pretty inevitable, but regardless, that's just kind of how it is. To be fair, McLaren, both of them have been so consistent all season. I don't know that they've actually either of them have wrecked out in a race. I might be forgetting one for Oscar, but I don't think I am. They've been extremely consistent, and props to them for that. And that shows in already being ahead in the constructors' championship, and Lando having a really a realistic shot at the drivers' championship now. So on to the British GP, he qualifies 3rd behind both Mercedes and finished 3rd behind Max, who passed him with just 4 laps left and who started in 4th. Um, Another massive missed opportunity there. He started in third to Max in fourth and ended up losing. He ended up keeping his position, but losing the place to Max, and 15 points to 18. That was the maximum of the gap opening. So at 84, that point, I mean, they had pretty much the fastest car. A couple of tracks, it was track dependent, to be fair. And that's what's been so great about this season is that on any given weekend, it could be the Ferraris, could be Mercedes, could be Red Bull. Not it hasn't really been Red Bull recently, but and it could definitely be the McLaren. Will most likely be the McLaren. So now, next race, on to Hungary. And if this isn't the main reason that they lose, I don't know what is, because Lando Norris qualifies in first, almost runs Piastri off the road into turn one, and still bottles it, loses the lead to Piastri. Then they have the whole controversy where they undercut Piastri with Norris. He comes back out on track first, puts a fucking 6-second gap on him ahead, and they're begging him on the radio to give the spot back to Oscar. That was the most pathetic shit I've seen. I don't know. I don't know how they expect to win a championship if they're making calls like that. And then after that, they're like, "Oh, maybe papaya rules, guys." Yeah, fucking bullshit. Um, that was the worst shit I've seen all season by far, and that probably will be the reason he ends up losing the drivers' championship. That's 7 points, dog. No fastest lap, gets 18 points. Max only had 10 that race, but you could have had 25. That would have put 15 points on him that race, and that would have really. I mean, he would have been at 45 right now instead of 52. That's a big gap, man. If that's not the reason that he loses, I'm not really sure what is because, well, maybe it's this next race. Maybe this next race will be the reason. Because in Spa, he qualifies fifth and finishes fifth, and behind Max, dude, behind Max, and which it would have been sixth actually. He would have finished in sixth if it wasn't for Russell DNFing, but still, another loss in points. Max did start in first and went down to fourth. Uh, Obviously, not the best car at that point, but the next race, the Dutch Grand Prix, perfect weekend for Lando. Qualified first, took first place, got fastest lap. Only problem is Max did come in second as well, so he minimized the damage as much as possible. Only an 8-point swing that weekend on a perfect weekend for Lando. Um, I'm sure that's tough for him. You know, he finally puts together the perfect weekend, and it's just like, oh, he's right behind me in second. Let's keep moving on, though. Let's move on to Monza. Monza got pole and finished third behind Piastri, who didn't get team orders. I don't know. I guess Ricciardo's 1 point's that big of a deal, but we can't give him team orders or let him through to second in Monza. I don't know, dude. I don't know. Maybe that'll be the reason he loses. I don't know. All seem like much more valid reasons than blaming Ricciardo for getting the fastest lap on his last lap in F1. You motherfucker. Anyway, on to Baku. Oh, and by the way, and by just a note, we should put a little asterisk here anyway, because this is the start of the mini DRS wing. And if you haven't seen the video on the mini DRS, I suggest you watch it. I'm sure you've seen it somewhere, but this was the start of that, was in Monza, supposedly. And then we go on to Baku, same thing. We'll put a little asterisk here because, it's a double, we'll put a double asterisk. Double asterisk because it was the flexi wing, but he did start in 16th because I didn't put the other asterisk. It doesn't matter. He did start in 16th because of that weird Q1 exit, which wasn't really his fault. And he did come back to to fourth and place ahead of Max, which is pretty impressive. So great weekend for him there too, and got the fastest lap. So good weekend, 2 weekends in a row. 2 weekends in a row with this new rear wing. Huh. Just kidding. Not really. I mean, it is cheating, and they're gonna have to change it. But it's only been those 2 weekends. Like at this point, you can't say like, oh, the entire season, is thrown away because of that 2 weeks. Not really, but and you can't really disqualify him for it because then that does ruin the season. So I like it. Let him play on. I like it. Let him play on. On to Singapore last weekend, qualified first, didn't bottle into turn one, really good race, and finished in first. Really good race, other than about 3 mistakes. Almost ruined his race, and couldn't brake into one of the turns and just almost went head on into it. Barely stopped in time and got the wheel turn, but damn, that was close. Only problem is first and first, but Max did come through in second as well and minimize the damage. Only 7 points and no fastest lap. So that's where we're at now, man. I think it just seems like at this point it's a bit of an insurmountable gap unless we get a couple of grid drops for Max because of engine parts, engine unit, whatever, because he has to replace that. He's already burned through all of them. I think he's burned through all of his gearboxes too. So I think he's probably gonna have to take maybe one more grid drop this year. And I don't think McLaren will have to at all. I don't really know what their usage is, but I know they haven't crashed at all. So it's hard to say, but I just have to add one more thing in here before the end of the video. If we go back through all of the moments that McLaren have had this season, all the times that they've bottled some points away, and I'm only going to count the ones that they really bottled away where they had an opportunity to do better and already set themselves up and then ruined it. So in Spain, Lando gets pole, finishes in second. Max takes first place from him. That's 8 points right there. I'm not going to count Austria because that was just a collision that just happened. Sometimes we'll count that. Uh, in Silverstone, starts in third, finishes third, lets Max past him from fourth into second. That's going to be 3 points there to 11 points total now. Hungary, whether you want to blame this one on Lando or on the team, he started on pole, lost it to Piastri. They're the ones that undercut him and then begged him on the radio to give him the points back. So, and the win back. So that's going to be another 7 points for them. That's 18 points now. And for a total of 27 in Italy. He starts in first, ends in third. That's a missing out on 9 points there to first place. That leads to 27 missed out points, and they're so worried and causing such a fuss over Daniel Ricciardo's last lap that they're throwing away that many points. There's your championship right there, 27 points just in the last half of this season so far that they've thrown away. I'm only counting since the first win in Miami when they first started thinking, okay, there might be some contention here. So let me know what you guys think. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe. I'm going to be back with a full in-depth breakdown and my predictions for the rest of the year for the Drivers' Championship and the Constructors. So keep an eye out for that, and I'll be back soon. Peace.